Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode number 2 of the Midwest Whitetail After Hours podcast. I'm your host, Jason Syens. Tonight, I have along with me a bunch. Actually, we've got a full house as at least as Zoom meetings go for this small screen. To my left on the screen is Caleb Greiner. To my right is Chad Holmes. Below him is Owen Riegler. And and Gavin, Gavin, I already forgot your last name. Sorry. We just went through this.
Yeah. Last name, Gavin Katurba.
Katurba,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
And then last and certainly not least, Mr. Mike Reed.
What's up, guys?
Hey, what's up? Everybody get a suntan this week?
No kidding.
Yeah.
Farmer's tan for sure.
Yeah. What was it like out there in contrast or I guess in comparison with our last podcast? What do you guys seeing? Owen, what are you seeing for a difference, if any, in movement?
It was pretty slow for me. I mean, what was it, 2 or 3 days ago, I hunted in that, mid-70s stuff. And man, I had the perfect setup, I thought. Does feeding all around me. The blog came out today, and I never did see a buck. I was flabbergasted. I was really surprised, man. I've got all these does feeding around me, this time of year. I'm like, oh, we got all the makings here, boys.
Yeah.
Right
Just
on.
knocking arrow. But yeah, it was slow. Nothing moved as far as bucks went.
Did you get the rain? What time? You had rain all day today?
Yeah, it's still raining now. I don't know if you can hear it hitting on the roof, but it's still raining right along.
And yeah. When's it gonna stop for you? Tonight?
No, not till tomorrow about 1 o'clock is what they're forecasting. So
God, that's what it's saying for me too. I think it is kind of skiving across us from south to north. So it's wide enough it's catching both of us.
yep.
I looked at the forecast just a minute ago and it's got east, north, west. It's a little vortex. So, I'm not sure about the morning quite yet.
Yeah, I didn't look at the weather for tomorrow just because I'm going to be tied up with real estate stuff all day. I might get back here to take my partner's son out. So I guess I probably should check into that, but I have no idea what it's going to do here tomorrow other than rain for some period of time.
Yeah.
But when I was watching that storm, it looked like it was sort of heading southwest to northeast. Is that what it was doing? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, regardless, was it a busy week for anybody in terms of a lot of movement or anybody at all?
I worked Thursday, Friday. So I worked the office last 2 days, but I went out Wednesday, which was the day after our last podcast. And that was one of the warmer days. I mean, I think the morning started at 48 or 50 and it ended at 77. And I had a great morning. I mean, I had a great morning in the stand. I ended up seeing, I think 9 bucks in the morning. I hit the horns together and I had, 4 bucks kind of run in. Some chasing was going on. I looked up in the bedding area and I could see 2 5-year-olds walking circles around each other, getting ready to, so it was a really fun morning. Didn't see my target, but as far as activity goes, it was probably my best morning of the rut so far. And then we moved out to a food plot in the afternoon in our tank tops and swim trunks and ended up seeing a few does and 1 young buck. I mean it was super slow in the afternoon, and that movement was basically the last 30 minutes, but that morning was hard to beat. It was a really good morning. And then I said, I didn't hunt the last 2 days. Today the rain was coming down all day, and I did in a break in the rain. I was in the office working, and I looked at my phone and I had a picture of Kelsey, my target, at noon working a scrape, and he was soaking wet. So little break in the rain, he got up and walked around and hit a scrape. So he's still in there. So hopefully these next few days I can cross paths with him. He didn't look like he was with a doe.
Are you hunting tomorrow, Mike?
I'm definitely going to. I'm not sure on the morning yet. I mean, we got thunderstorms and wind blowing in every direction. It's supposed to get to 22 miles an hour. So in previous years, if I had a moment to hunt, I was in the woods no matter what. But as I get a few grays, I look at some of those mornings and I think maybe I'm better off waiting until the afternoon.
Exactly
So,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to get some wisdom here. It does help to have a buck down already too. It takes the pressure off a little bit. I don't get as antsy
Just
about going, but
just a little bit, yeah.
yeah.
I
Try
tell
not
you,
to hurt my spot.
yeah, as soon as it quits raining tomorrow, the switch will be flipped, I think. I mean, it's gonna get crazy, I bet you guys. Cold front came through and all this rain. I can't imagine they won't be on their feet.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't imagine we're not going to see any social media feed fill up with pictures of dead deer.
Yeah. It may be something where I told Ryan I'm going to wake up at 4:30 and look at the forecast, but we may just plan to head out like at 10 or whatever time, a couple hours before it starts, and just sit the rest of the day, try to get in a good spot. But for sure, noon or whatever, and be in there. If the forecast is wrong right now, then we'll go ahead and, I'll wake up and check it and we'll get out in the morning, but it ain't looking too good right now.
No, it doesn't.
Caleb,
Caleb, what,
I sat. Yeah, sorry, I've been quiet. I sat yesterday, and as soon as I got set up, I couldn't hunt the morning. I could only hunt the evening. I got set up, and as I was putting everything in the tree, that 12 brought a doe right under me, and he brought her to the south for a little bit. Got to watch him, and never saw him the rest of the night. But pretty much what you guys are saying, the mornings have been fantastic. The afternoons have been pretty slow.
you guys
But
think that's a product of the heat, or do you think it's a product of just the stage of the rut that it's at?
I would say both probably.
Yeah.
If you had some cold weather, I think it would spur that evening movement, but it's also early. It was a little early, we're just coming into the cusp right now. I think from tomorrow, the next 7 days should be the best.
When you say the best, Owen, what does that mean to you?
Me, that means they're going to be on their feet, cruising, searching, chasing, all the activity we wait all year for. If you're in a stand, if you're in a funnel situation, I mean, you're going to see some activity. I'd be surprised if we don't tomorrow. And as long as this cold front lasts, I bet you even midday activity would be pretty good, I think.
I'm going to ask probably a dumb question, but I think it's a question that a lot of people, back when I did another podcast, it seemed like no matter what, people struggled with some of the definitions that we use, like, pinch point, whatever the case may be. Could you just describe what you just sort of talked about? Oh, if you were to go into the timber, what would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, a good pinch point for right now, for me, would be what I call a connector. That's something that would connect two areas, maybe bedding areas. You got a small transition area, maybe a little fence line, could be a creek or something like that that funnels movement down, a ditch crossing, a creek crossing, all that kind of stuff. Anything that kind of funnels the movement down.
Sure.
Connectors are a big one to me. If you can find those connectors, we'll be cruising back and forth on those.
Like a big thick fence line or something like that.
Right. Creek corridors are pretty prominent down where I'm at here, so those are always good ones.
Head of a ditch.
Yep.
Yeah, head of a big ravine or something like that. They walk around the top of it.
Have you guys got all of you collectively got? I know Chad does, but have you got a lot of topography there?
Yeah, I do here. Yep. It's hill country.
Yeah.
Yeah, my home farm is lots of hills, creeks, ravines draining down to the creek, and then of course the river bottoms. I mean, there's not 4 feet of elevation change throughout the whole thing. It's pretty flat, so it's a totally different style. I mean, it's something I'm somewhat used to hunting in Louisiana in the swamps and stuff. It's very flat down there, but it's a different type of thing. Looking for ways to pinch deer down. And something that's so flat and grassy. You're looking at vegetation, the river, of course. They like to run up and down the river, and even though it's not a classic pinch, you get a lot of deer following that trail along the river. And then the pinch that we talk about on the river bottom farm is kind of between a slough and the river. And it's, it's 100 yards wide. So they don't all come in bow range, but.
Don't you think, just with respect to the wind, it's easier to hunt a place like that?
That's exactly where I was going to, Jason. I was gonna say that must be nice from a wind standpoint, because, we got some bluffs and pretty hilly stuff here. And a lot of times you might have a 90-degree different wind because of a hill or whatever, you're getting a wraparound or.
Yeah.
You see that a lot, Mike, on that river farm, you get pretty consistent.
I think it's better. I'm often surprised. In fact, if you asked Rye, he'd say, yeah, I'm often the tree being like, it's not supposed to be blowing like that. And I'm looking at, how is that wind current flowing down the river or down the field edge and then breaking where it breaks into the river, how it changes currents. But I do think it's better than the hills and the troughs and the valleys and all these things that get that turbulence. But even down there, you won't necessarily have it predictable. Maybe it's just a weatherman messing with us.
What about Caleb? What are you hunting?
So I'm hunting funnels. Just exactly what you guys are talking about, where things come together. For me, one of my favorite spots where I encounter that 12-2 is just where two large chunks of timber bottleneck together, and these deer are walking an 80-yard slit of timber that connects between these two timbers. So I just got lucky and caught them cruising. But especially the next week could be a killer time to sit one of those spots or an area like that. I do think I've seen a lot of pictures on scrapes this week. I think the bucks have been hitting scrapes really hard. So I think tomorrow, if you get out of the wind and you can find a good community scrape, sit over that, you should have some pretty good hunt.
Chad, you're in we kind of talked about it the other day on the phone. You're in hill country there over, I don't remember the name of the county, but close to Pike County, Illinois, right?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, we spent the last couple of days over there, and we were just kind of opposite of what Mike and the guys were seeing. Our mornings were actually dead, but our afternoons we sit green and saw more movement. It wasn't a lot of movement, but we did see a couple different 3-year-olds and some does out on on the green, and even really not a whole lot of chasing, which we are usually a couple of days behind those guys in Iowa. So with that being said, the mornings, what we were doing is we were sitting between kind of what Caleb was talking about, the two hardwood blocks that kind of fed down. And I've got a small cattle pond that sits between those two. So we were trying to get on water thinking that, before they went back into bed, or if they were coming off of bed, they would hit that water, and get another drink before they moved on. But really just didn't work out for us, those morning sits. And then again, we transitioned in our t-shirts and shorts over green in the afternoons and did see a little bit better action there. But like the guy said, I think this upcoming week, once this rain pushes out and the temperature drops, you're going to see a tremendous amount of movement take place.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be good.
Hey, Owen, I got a question for you. With these warmer temperatures, Lee and I were talking the other day, would it be beneficial to have a little source of water, say in your green plot? You think deer would be hitting that pretty good this time of year, or is it kind of not worth the energy?
No, I think it would be. I was thinking that when we were talking before we were live here, I was thinking if a guy had with those kind of temps, that'd be a good strategy to hunt water. And even maybe not even on a food plot in the morning, maybe back in the timber if you had a little water source, I think any of that would pay off, could pay off. Definitely.
Yeah,
I've got a little pond back in the timber on one of the farms, and it's not quite dry, even with all the drought we've had. It's full of leaves, but there's a little bit of water in there, and I've got a camera on it. And quite a few of the mature bucks, they're dipping down in there and getting a drink. It's definitely a strategy that I think would work if you had it. I've often thought about, taking a little excavator or skid loader and putting little water holes in just to make a one-stop shop, and someday when I find some free time on the side of the road, I'll maybe start doing that.
Yeah, I've been going to do the same thing. My only thought was to use some kind of a tank,
Sure.
maybe a poly tank, so you don't create the mud flats was my only thing, I think that'd be a great strategy.
I went and bought a couple of those I think they're 50-gallon Rubbermaid cattle tanks,
Mm-hmm.
and then just dug them into the ground,
Yeah.
and that works pretty good. That was on my lease in the southwest part of the state, and then in the south central part of the state, we just took, like one of those Walmart pool liners or whatever, and took the skid steer and made a scrape, and then lined it, dumped some dirt on it, and that worked really good too. And this year has been odd. Normally I can depend on a ton of pictures off of that little water hole, but I can't think of one great picture that I got off of there.
Mm.
Normally in the summer, you get some really good velvet pictures there, and it's just been non-existent this year. I don't know why.
Were you guys pretty droughted up there too, Jason?
No, actually, it got pretty tight there for a couple different days, but we always seem to be blessed with the rain at the right time.
Yeah.
So, Caleb, or excuse me,
Keep trying.
Gavin. Yeah, right. Gavin, what have you been seeing besides raindrops?
Yeah, a lot of raindrops today. I haven't been out a ton since we last were on the podcast, just catching up on work and stuff.
Sure.
Back behind my house, we have just a small 1/4 acre food plot at the most, and it's like no more than 100 yards from the house. We can just wake up, look out the back door, and see deer out there. It's pretty cool. But it was yesterday morning. We looked back there. It was like 7:30, I want to say, which right around now is about first light. I mean, just a little bit after first light, definitely before sunrise. And there
Right.
was a solid 8 that we had seen a couple different times now. He was out there feeding in the green plots, just Nebraska blend, with a doe. He was sticking tight to her. She didn't seem receptive or anything, but he was definitely sticking tight to her. So I don't know if she was getting close, but they worked up the hill, and so we decided we were going to go hunt them in the evening. Never saw him or her that I know of. We saw a good pile of does come out to the cornfield that's up on top of the ridge up above the plot, but that was really it. And I forget who was talking about it earlier. Or I think it was Owen with the blog that you released, but the pile of does, I mean, we saw 6 or 7 does and just not even a dink with them. It's kind of surprising for November 3rd, 4th, to not see, at least something chasing them around.
It's
So
crazy.
but no, the cameras have been a little slow, but they've been picking up, especially honestly today. They've been pretty hot today. Just seems like this weather, in my experience at least, just drizzly, rainy days like this, the deer like to move a lot. And that was actually the same. It's the same, a little bit less rainy, but the same conditions that we had when we encountered that big one on public. Just kind of drizzly out, and it seems like they just feel comfortable moving on those days. So we've had them hitting scrapes today and stuff, and I actually had a couple hunters come through on public, which was surprising to see. So I don't know the future of that big deer, whether or not he's still around or what, or if he's moved into a different area, or if he's, who knows. But we need to get some more cameras out still, and it's just early November, and we don't have a ton of time, so it's hard to still cover all your bases, but we're still hunting, so it's been going pretty well.
Good. He won't go too far.
No,
There's
I don't
does in
think
there.
so.
There's lots of cover, so just
Yeah.
keep after him.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
gonna say we scouted around the other day just a little bit, and we were sitting a funnel basically on the backside of where he was bedded out, where we encountered him. And it's a really good funnel. It's like a 50-yard wide strip between a CRP field and a duck pond, an old dried up duck pond, and it's just a little strip of timber. It's pretty open, and it's all you could ever ask for as far as a funnel. But beyond that, out in front, closer to the river, where it's all thicker and more river bottom type stuff, there's like 2 or 3 more sloughs that go in the same direction as the duck pond. And so there's like 3 funnels kind of stacked as you get closer and closer to the river. So it's kind of cool. And I think we're just going to kind of stage hunt that essentially, and see if we can run into more deer as we get closer to the river. I know Nick said he saw some deer running around back there as we were sitting there that morning. So it might be that they've just moved a little closer to the river with increased hunting pressure coming into, up closer by the road. So I don't know. We just gotta hunt some more and see what it looks like. So
They like that cover too. If that
Yeah.
first funnel's a little open, they'll get in the thicker stuff, particularly if people are walking around. But
yeah,
good spot for cameras. If you find the main trail through that little funnel, a
Yeah.
scrape and a trail, and try to set up on those. But
yeah.
I'm on pins and needles waiting for your next hunt out there.
I know, man. I'm right there with you. It's eating me alive, just that big of a deer, and it's also eating me alive that we're getting pictures of other good deer, but at the same time, it's like you got to go hunt them,
That's right. Yeah, you just never know this time of year.
Right. No, we're gonna keep after him for sure.
I think that's probably the lesson of the week is, regardless of whether or not it's 70 degrees, it's certainly irritating and it's not as much fun to be all sweaty and when you get to your tree, but they're still going to do what they're going to do regardless of what the weather is. The calendar, it always happens kind of around the same time, and whether it's hot or not, they're going to breed, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Well, you had a pretty good hunt this week, didn't you, Jason?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. It was typical Jason hunt, I would say. I started at home, or excuse me, at what I would call my home lease, on Wednesday morning, the second, and I really went out on the second just because I had killed one. I was telling Gavin earlier today, I'd killed one back in 2017 when someone had challenged me to hunt public land. I'd killed one on the second. I've done it one other time, so I went just because of that, even though I was kind of crabby pants because of the weather, and just kind of had a crappy morning. And I don't know why, but I wasn't hunting Gumby anymore, and I didn't have anything that I was just absolutely in love with, and I just decided to get in the truck, and we headed 2 hours to the southwest part of the state and made it there by about 1 o'clock. I was probably up in the tree by 1:30, and I was just looking at everything. I hadn't been there in 2 years. Was thankful that the stand was still up, and I did bring extra straps and all that stuff in with me in case I was going to have an issue with that. But I didn't, and I saw a deer almost immediately. I mean, we saw a deer when we got out of the truck. And then I was walking into this stand, which is about 3/4 of a mile walk, and I cut out a little piece a couple of years ago. I cut out a little piece of what I would call a wall of what a logger would have pushed a bunch of treetops as they made the trail through the timber. I cut a hole through that to get to this stand, and I was sneaking through that hole, and I looked, and I could see this small oak sapling just whipping back and forth, and I'm looking at the rest of the trees, going, "I know what that looks like." And so I got down on my knee, and I was contemplating whether to knock an arrow or not, because I didn't have a cameraman. So I didn't, and that deer actually worked 3 different trees and then walked away. And I got up in the tree, and it was a short time later when I had probably 3 fawns come on this timber transition, and I want to talk about that after we're done with this quick story. But I hunt a timber transition at the top of a ditch, I'd call it. So although in this part of Grant County, it's known for being pretty well straight up and down and pretty rugged country, this farm just has a big flat top. In I don't know, it's a good sized area. I'd say it's probably better than 50 acres of just timber and flat without a ton of contour. So I sit where that kind of breaks up, and these fawns came out, and then mom came out, and I just kept looking back there for a buck, and sure enough, here one came, and I took one quick look at it as it was coming in because I didn't have my camera on, because I hadn't had a chance to charge the batteries and all that good stuff. So I looked at him. That's a great buck. I honestly thought it was a 10-pointer I had on camera. That's big. He's a really respectable deer. He probably touches in the 60s. But I grabbed the camera and started trying to film. And as I'm filming, the cam buckle on the top of the top strap for the tree arm let loose. And so my tree arm that's supposed to be sitting like that is now pointed at the ground, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So it turned into a real rodeo, and
awesome.
so I was telling Caleb about it today, or excuse me, I was telling Gavin about it today. It was just a rodeo trying to get that thing back on the deer. And I haven't watched all the footage because it kind of makes me sick. But he ended up coming, and then he kind of cut out, and I thought, okay, he's gone. I got a second to work on this cam buckle and to get it straightened back out. And about the time I turned to look at that, I happened to notice he had done an about face, and he was coming right at me. So I grabbed the bow again. I got my right knee kind of holding the camera arm up in the air, and I've got my hand on the camera. And I finally get it in position to where I think I'm going to shoot him. And I'm holding that camera arm up with my knee, and I draw back and I don't get a shot there. And he ends up turning and coming even closer. And he walks right into about 30 yards, and I grunted and stopped him at 30 yards and smoked him right through the last rib, and it came out his shoulder, and he took off running and expired probably within 75 yards. I was pretty sure I heard him crash, but not 100% sure. I was a little surprised at the blood trail at the initial site or at the spot where I shot. There was a lot of blood. And then it really petered out, and that made me a little bit nervous, but I kept looking ahead, knowing that I thought I heard him crash, and he was there. So I did get the shot on camera, as I think some of you may have seen. I don't know how I got so lucky that he stopped where he stopped to get that shot, but I had it about as good in frame as you could possibly get it. So I got lucky on that deal, but honestly, guys, it wasn't the deer that I was looking to shoot. That's what happens sometimes when you got that much garbage going on in the tree. But it was fun, hudefinitely a memorable hunt. It was a real rodeo in the tree there for a bit.
The joys of self-filming.
Yeah.
Congrats, man. It's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks. It was fun to after a couple of years of not killing anything, to put the herd on one, and it's always fun to get a good shot and find them right away. And then my battery died, so I wasn't able to get a final interview, and I'll get that all figured out. But it's 77 degrees, I think it was, and I'm nowhere close to home. I've in 5 years of leasing that place, I've never shot a deer there. This is the first year I shot a deer there. I have no idea where to take it. And I was just thinking that I just happened to stop by the family across the road from where I lease, and I said, hey, do you guys know of any place where I can get a deer processed, thinking I could drop it off? And they said, we'll take as many as you can bring. And I said, oh, okay. So they took the deer, and I'm picking it up tomorrow. They're going to keep most of the meat. I told them that was okay, and they actually asked if they could have a few more does. But all's well that ends well. So a 2-hour drive back. I didn't have to do a whole lot of messing around like I thought I was going to, but it was a good time, good hunt. Like I said, it wasn't exactly what I had planned, but not everything always goes the way we plan it.
Amen.
Congrats, man.
Thank you. And I was going to ask you, as you were talking about, and on this lease, there's plenty of defined pinch points. And I don't know if any of you guys know Dan Infault at all. But he and I have walked it a couple different times and just trying to figure it out, because I was getting a little bit embarrassed that I hadn't killed a deer in 3 years. And it's just a tough place at times to hunt because of the wind. But it's also really big timber. I would compare half-heartedly, I guess, compare it to northern Wisconsin. I mean, you've got tracks of, my gosh, take out a few short pieces of fence line, less than 100 yards, and I bet you've got thousands of acres of contiguous timber. And there's ag fields in that timber, but there's timber. I mean, and it just goes. That ridge goes from Boscobel almost all the way to Fenimore. So it can be a little challenging in that big timber to find, if you've got that really defined point, like you're talking, or along a ridge, maybe it's, just some small sort of topography feature, that you can hunt. But what I found in this particular spot is this timber transition where I'm sitting in a bunch of maples, but there's been some logging that was done to my south, and that's created a timber transition, where it gets real thick and real thin. And I'm just sitting right on the edge of that, and that they seem to move right through there pretty well. I've had some really good hunts there over the years. But I was curious to hear whether you guys have that big a timber down there, and if you do, when you're in a position, and any of you could take this question if you would, when you're in that position, what is it that you do? What is it that you look for, other than the normal stuff, like rubs and scrapes and all that good stuff? But what type of terrain features would you look for?
For what you're describing, Jason, I think one of the most common that I would look for is an erosion ditch that cuts up toward that ridge. It creates that funnel. You're on the downhill side or downwind side of that ridge where that ditch cuts up in there. So everything's got to come around the end of it.
Yep.
That would be one thing I would look for.
Now that you say that's where I'm at. I've never looked at it that way, but that ridge, it's a long ridge, but it very slowly at that point is coming to a head where it sort of starts to flatten out. I never thought of that.
Yeah, and sounds like you've also got the edge feature there too that we always key in on, all this edge stuff. So you got the edge of hardwood timber going into more thicket or whatever.
Yep.
So you've got that edge created. So sounds like a good spot. And I've got some bigger chunks of timber down here, but they're hard to access is the problem I've got. That's why I don't hunt a lot in the timber, because you've got to go through so much field to get to it. Like in the morning, that's where I would normally hunt that, You got to walk through 200 acres of field to get there, and you feel like you're just blowing everything out, getting into it, So that's why a lot of times I'm on the perimeter, just kind of picking my spots around it,
Yeah, a lot of times when I'm talking to clients, I would say the number one for a really serious whitetail hunter that's looking at a pretty, we'll call it an upscale whitetail property. They're going to be looking for access, and particularly in this hill country where you've got so much elevation change, you're looking for that top access. And I'm lucky that I can come in from the west side through a CRP field and get into that timber without. I can't ever remember spooking a deer walking in from there. Now I've spooked him in the timber plenty of times, but you're going to do that regardless of where you're at.
Yeah, and I've got that same situation on some areas too, where you've got great access, but then it comes down to we're always trying to challenge ourselves with hunting one deer or two deer. Well, then you don't have a deer that's in that area, so it takes out that whole section. You're not even hunting it because there's not deer there. This time of year it kind of changes up because he might go through there, but yeah, it's kind of where I'm at so far this year. I haven't hunted a whole lot of timber, but
Yeah.
Anybody? Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, the big blocks of timber are one of the harder ones to pick apart on an aerial. A lot of farms, you can pick them apart on an aerial when you got field edge and funnels and ditches and creeks and all this kind of stuff. So the head of the ditch is always a big one, but understanding where the deer feed and where the deer bed, and finding those trails and hunting the right wind. But where I hunted back home in Louisiana, quite a bit before I ended up moving from there, was like a 6,000 acre chunk of timber. And the people that owned it, they cut, 100 to 150 acres every year to pay some of the bills, and so every year they were cutting another 100 acres, and you had all these different successions of growth, and those end up being the big bedding areas. Tons
Sure.
of deer in there. They walk that edge, and so the fact that you have some timber cuts in there is, I think you're right, thinking all the right stuff. Those, the edge, and once you learn where the bedding is and where they're headed, it's that's kind of how I approach them. But the head of the ditch is always hard to beat. They just take the path of least resistance, walking around that stuff.
Well, in Wisconsin, we only got one archery tag, so I'm going to be spending the rest of my season in a tree with a young man, trying to help him get his first archery deer. So it'll be fun to climb in the tree and be a cameraman again.
Yeah, that
for a little bit.
Yeah. Good luck.
When I was talking with Gavin today, I'm like, yeah, I don't ever want to be a cameraman again if I can help it. This I don't mind because it's pretty fun helping out like that. But yeah, I'm done till.
What do you mean I have to charge the batteries?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's rule number one.
Normally 5 would get me through a half a day easy, and then I just charge whatever, maybe 1 or 2 that I didn't use. Don't have to charge those, but I can get the rest charged in a couple hours with all the different chargers going. There wasn't time to charge anything on that drive down, so we'll figure something out. Gavin said he's gonna work some magic.
There you go.
That we can do.
Yeah. Anybody have anything else they want to add before we're done here for tonight?
Let's just go field some tags, boys.
Yeah, good luck to everybody.
So Mike, you're gonna, or someone's going to make a post on one of your social media outlets prior to our next podcast, and we'll try and answer a couple questions. And if you got something specific to ask, then except Owen. I think last time you got all the questions. No.
They heard him when he said it's his favorite thing to do.
Yeah. He did. He said that a couple times, but you've always got good answers, and they seem to work out. So, so we'll put something on social media and then address a few questions, and we can kind of try and sprinkle that in and throughout the rest of the year. And yeah, I think that's all we have. Does anybody want to talk about anything special coming up here on Monday? What we get, or is it Sunday? Whatever the next featured weekly show is.
Yeah, Monday's going to be Rise Kill. Hey, Gavin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're gonna just talk about the lessons learned and stuff. It's a pretty sweet hunt, and I know Rye's pretty excited about it and everything. So excited to bring it to you.
Awesome. That comes out when and where?
Just on Monday morning. So it'll be out on our YouTube channel for in Monday morning, and then we'll put it up on our website as well as a couple other platforms after that. So
okay, all right. Anybody have anything else? No? All right, you guys are pretty quiet. All right, everybody get to bed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, good luck, everybody.
All right, have a good night,
guys in a few days.
Good luck, guys.
All right, we're out. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
that worked out well. All right.
I can't wait to see some grip and grins over these next couple of days there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of those, I think. Don't you think?
Yeah.
All right. Gavin, I'll get this over to you here shortly.
Perfect.
Okay.
I got good Wi-Fi, so it should get up pretty quick here.
Okay.
Awesome.
Anybody got anything else? If not, we're out. All right. See you guys.
Over and out. Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, fellas.
Good night.